All right, everybody, we're back with the second episode of Around the Draft, ATB Scouting Podcast. Joining me is my main co-host, Jacob, and Felix here today. So we don't have a guest, unfortunately. I think everybody was I'm going to say they're a little too afraid to talk quarterbacks. That's what the topic is of the show. I'm just messing with you guys. If you guys are watching, didn't want to come on, I get it if you're not ready to talk about them. But we'll definitely have more guests as we go through the draft process for different positions. But just the three of us today, guys. So we're going to talk about our top 5 quarterbacks specifically and some other guys. We'll start there, kind of some honorable mention types. But once we're done doing that, of course, we've got to do a mock draft if we can, and especially with 3 guys. It'll be a little quicker probably than the last time. I know we kind of went a little overboard, but I'm never going to get mad talking about the draft for a while with you guys, so no worries there. But yeah, guys, let's just get into it. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of talk about honorable mention guys, because there's always more than 5 quarterbacks, of course, that are going to get drafted. Sometimes not many more than that might make an impact, especially year one or even at all ever. But this class is pretty well thought of in terms of the depth of the quarterback class. So there's going to be some guys that get drafted maybe day 2, even day 3, that could end up making an impact or could eventually be starters. So definitely want to take some time to talk about the guys outside of our top 5. So I'm going to kick it over to Jake first. Give me your first kind of guy that you want to talk about that didn't quite make your top 5.
So the first one that I would talk about would be Bo Nix. He's my 6th.
Okay.
But right. I think we're going to talk about him a bit, so I'm going to leave.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be.
I feel like he'll be brought up again. Yeah. I'm going to go with Michael Pratt.
Okay.
From a smaller school, but when watching him, it kind of just feels like he has that it factor. He seems like a leader. I feel like he just turns up in the big moments. He's one of those guys where, for me, it's just watching the eye test. It just looks like he's got that dog in him, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's probably going to be a day 3 guy or maybe a late day 2 guy, especially in just a quarterback class that's as packed as this one. But I think he's one of those players who he might come into the league as a backup. Maybe if a starter gets injured, you might see him have a good game or 2. And I don't know. I think he could be a steal in a late day 2 or early day 3 pick.
Yeah, I actually tend to agree. So I have him as a third rounder, like third, fourth rounder type of guy. He's quarterback 8 for me. So he's definitely kind of in that honorable mention tier right below the top 5 guys. And I think the thing for me with him is ultimately it's going to hold him back because I don't think he has elite physical tools at any part of his game. Like he's not an elite throw power guy. He's not going to be the most accurate per se quarterback, although he's a good quarterback in that way. I don't think he has special accuracy or anything. He's a good athlete. He definitely he used his running ability a lot in college, honestly, but I don't think it's going to translate quite the same way it did at a higher level of competition. I don't think he has the long speed to kind of be one of those true like rushing threats, but runs hard, runs physical for a smaller quarterback too. I think he's listed like 6'1", 215 or so. I think is what he ended up at the Senior Bowl. So I think he has enough tools to be like a high-end backup spot starter type. And in the right system, those types of guys can start at times for a while. You look at a guy like Gardner Minshew, and I'll throw this name out there, although I think he's not like this level quarterback, but Purdy also doesn't have elite physical tools, but you see what he's been able to do, right, in the right system. Like these guys can stick around for a while, right? So I think he's definitely worthy of being drafted on day 2 late, or again, very early day 3. I think is definitely his range there.
Yeah, I think that's going to be his exact type of fit in the league. I think he needs to develop a little bit more as a thrower, and I think he relies on his running a little bit too much. I don't know if that's going to work as well in the NFL, but
you imagine not.
Yeah.
What do you think, Felix? Did you get a chance to look at Pratt at all yet?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of Pratt, and funny enough, he was going to be one of my guys that I talk about too. That's like,
okay, cool.
Didn't make my 5, but I did like him.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like Jake said, like he's not excelling at any one particular trait, but he just does everything pretty good. And there's that it factor. It's funny, like I was watching him, and I just kept thinking he'd be really ideal for a team that's kind of looking for that backup quarterback that they feel good enough is going to start to keep their offense going, you know what I mean, and not I guess relegate it down to something more simplistic. I just kept thinking for some reason like the Bengals would be like a place where he could land. Burrow gets hurt or something, he
like a Jake Browning.
And him and Browning actually probably have a similar amount of traits there.
Yeah, and that's what kind of like popped in my head. I was thinking that, and I'm like, okay, well, Pratt's like the younger guy, so maybe that would be a little bit, more enticing.
Yeah,
Uh,
long term, yeah.
I do. I agree. I think he just doesn't excel in anything in particular, but is like a real steady quarterback. Like I think he definitely makes an NFL roster. Definitely is going to be on a game day roster, but could develop. Never know.
Yeah, I think a team that would really should be showing interest in him especially if they don't target it in free agency, which I kind of think is going to be their game plan, Jets, because they need somebody who at least is a backup quality quarterback that can come in case Rodgers doesn't work out again this year, gets hurt or whatever. Because we saw what happened with Wilson. He just doesn't have it, unfortunately for him. I just don't think he does enough things well to be even really a high end backup, let alone a starter. So bring in a guy who is not going to wow you with anything, but he probably can keep the ship afloat for better, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term, with a defense like that. With granted their weapons need a lot of improvement, so maybe they won't take a guy like this early enough to get him because they need to bring in weapons. But yeah, he would make a lot of sense for really any team that doesn't feel great about their backup spot, or even a team that kind of wants a way out of maybe their starter and a guy who can spot start for a little while and keep things moving. So yeah, definitely an interesting guy. I'll throw a name out there that I think most people are thinking of, like that's kind of just outside those top 5 or 6 guys. Spencer Rattler for me. The problem with him is like when you watch his tape, it is a roller coaster because there is no pass protection on South Carolina's roster. There is nobody who can block anybody. If he wasn't throwing to Xavier Legette, it kind of felt like he was wasting his time. Like it was not the best situation for a quarterback to be in. But the traits that you saw with him at Oklahoma before he transferred to South Carolina are still there. He's a good athlete, can throw the ball very, very well. Has good arm talent. The decision making is better than it's been. I think he's definitely getting better at that. I think it's still the thing that's probably going to hold him back from being like a high level starter ever. But I think he has more than enough traits to be a starter, and I think it's just going to come down to the right situation for him, right? I think if he can sit for another year, maybe when he gets drafted, which he probably will, regardless of where he gets drafted at, he could end up making good on like a second or third round pick, being an actual like longer term starter possibly for somebody. So
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys thought about him.
One thing I love about Spencer Rattler is that Spencer Rattler loves Spencer Rattler. He always has confidence in himself.
Yeah, that's good.
So I think that's going to be really important for wherever he lands in the NFL. And I actually think playing behind that offensive line kind of set him back a little bit in his mechanics.
Yeah.
Because I noticed a lot of times he's throwing off his back foot and his mechanics are just messed up because he's always under pressure.
Yeah.
So that'll be something that definitely needs to get worked on. But I mean, that's fixable,
Yeah,
and
especially if you let him sit for a while first.
Yeah, and he has all the tools, I think, to be a solid QB. So he's definitely someone I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the thing I just kept thinking and watching Rattler is that he's a gunslinger. I mean,
he wants to be.
They could be down however many points. He could throw 4 picks in a row, and he's still going to try and like fit it in a tight window or throw it deep. I did listen to it was an episode of a recent one of NFL Stock Exchange, and they brought up that he was under pressure around 40% of the time.
Yeah, it was an insane. I mean, you watched the games I watched. I was like, that feels about right.
Yeah, which is absurd. It's absurd.
Insane.
And I have to say, I'll probably be talking about Rattler a little bit more, so I'll leave it at that. But I honestly, I like Rattler's game because I feel a lot like he was at Oklahoma. There's a lot of backyard football. He gets to South Carolina, and there's not a lot there outside of Legette, So what you see can be a roller coaster, but I just kept thinking about like the arm talent he has, the athleticism that's there, and the confidence, like you said, Jake, that he brings to the table. He ends up on an NFL roster with like a decent line and some weapons. Yeah, there's no telling like what he could be. Maybe he ends up being a starter in the league,
This is the type of guy that when people talk about like developmental quarterback prospects, like this is what you need to look for in a guy like that, where he's not probably going to go in the first round. He doesn't have the pedigree for it currently at this point. He had some issues in college, but he has all the physical tools. You can probably get him in the late second, early third round, if I had to guess, unless people really fall in love with him, which is possible with a guy like this with his tools. And then you hope that after a year or so of sitting, you can insert him into the starting lineup possibly for either an older quarterback or just quarterback you're looking to move off of. And now you can hit the ground running with him, hopefully. Like that, he is the quintessential developmental backup type of quarterback. You don't see that many, honestly, because a lot of these guys that have the tools just end up getting pushed up the board. I think Rattler is a case where that might not end up happening, and it probably will benefit him in the long run in that case. So, yeah, definitely wanted to make sure I throw him out there. And then I'll just say my quarterback 6 real quick, guys, because I think this will possibly be different from, like, I think you guys might either have him in the top 5 because most people will, or if you agree with me, then we can kind of hash it out right now. And this is more so about like where I would take these guys, right? So I'm ranking them, and I'm sure you guys are kind of in the same boat of like, in what order would I be willing to take the quarterbacks that are in this draft? Because the film grade for this guy is a little bit higher than 2 other guys I have. But my concerns about the medicals and about his play style push him down a little bit. Michael Penix Jr. is my quarterback 6. I love him. I love what he does. His season was awesome. The just the fact that he missed so much time in college. I'm curious what the medicals look like at the combine. I'm curious what we see about that because I'm sure that's going to be reported on as soon as they're available. That'll really, I think, matter a lot for him. But also, guys who just can't really play make at the next level are always going to get ticked down a little bit for me. Even if I think they could be successful in the right situation, the fact that it's really going to have to be more than any quarterback has to be propped up to a certain degree by his system. Like, unless you are a top 3, top 5 guy. Like for me though, just Penix doesn't have the playmaking ability to win out of structure very often. And if you put him on a team that either requires that of the quarterback because of the situation that they find themselves in, or just don't do enough around him to make him not have to do that to be successful, I don't know if he's going to work out as a starter. And because of that, I kind of have to move him down a little bit below some of the other guys that maybe aren't as good as him right now overall or aren't as good passers, but I think will be more successful regardless of their situation in the league. So that's kind of my spiel on him. I'm sure you guys have thoughts on him as well, though.
Yeah, I have Penix as my quarterback 4.
Right. Okay.
But everything that you just said, I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are all pretty warranted concerns. It's really going to depend on how healthy he can be, but I think just because of his arm talent, I think his floor in the league is pretty high.
Yeah.
And I think the lack of ability to play make is an issue, and I think it's probably, besides the medicals, I think it's his biggest issue.
Mm-hmm.
But just with his arm talent, I just can't see him not at least having a decent career. I don't
hope
think
so.
his ceiling is as high as most of the other guys in the draft because of his inability to, make plays on the fly. But with how good his arm is, I don't see him not having at least a decent career. He might not be as much of a star as, some of the other guys in this class, obviously, but yeah, I think he can at least be a decent NFL QB.
What do you think, Felix?
Yeah, no, I think number 1 for sure is the medicals. I think that's
Mhm.
something that is a concern because he missed a lot of time. And personally, it was going to be a point that I made like a little later, but something that really stuck out to me in like the bit of watching that I've done is that a lot of this class features, whether they're good or not, or however you feel, it features a lot of like pretty good athletes at the position in terms of being able to extend the play a little bit, move around a little bit, use their
Yeah.
legs. And Penix is like the one guy in that upper tier that isn't that.
Yeah.
And that is something for me that is kind of a big sort of red flag because, in my opinion, of all the guys that are here, quarterback is such an interesting position because there's so many variables that go into the success of the guy. But Penix of all of these players, I think, is the one who his success is very contingent on where he lands.
Mhm.
And I
agree.
just don't. I keep seeing him. My team's the Giants. I see him in mock drafts in the 2nd round, and I'm like, that'd be a disaster. He would die. Like it wouldn't work. You'd have him and your starting quarterback and Jones who get hurt all the time. It's ideal, and it's behind a spotty offensive line. He is, I think, a player that if he ended up on a team that was looking quarterback but was pretty stacked otherwise, like a playoff team or something like that, that's going to be a place where I wouldn't be surprised if he takes off. But I don't know. And then I think about the fact that he had a lot of talent. There wasn't a lot of elevating he had to do around him. His top three receivers are all going to be guys that get drafted. Their offensive line was really one of the better lines, especially in their conference.
Oh yeah.
So he didn't face pressure that much. And then when he did, it wasn't like he was making that, game changing play that like moves the chains and just like motivates the team. I don't know. I just didn't see like the difference maker. It was really him getting the ball out quickly, putting it in a nice spot, but then guys like Adunze and Polk like making plays on the ball. So yeah, I think I had him like honestly like QB8. So
Yeah, and again, I think the range on him is really interesting because 4, 6, 8, right? Like just in our little group here, and I can understand all of those positions though, because for me, like he is a true like point and click quarterback. Like, boom, guys open, fire it in, boom, like I think the touch needs work for him. I think his overall accuracy it looked better than it was from a statistical standpoint. I think that he still leaves a lot to be desired in ball placement at times too. Like he gets the ball where it needs to be for a guy to make a play on it, but oftentimes they have to make a play on it. And I think at the next level, obviously you have professional receivers, but he did play with 3 guys who are going to be professional receivers. So you still want to give them better chances overall and give them more chances to make plays after the catch too, which I do think is something that was missing from Adunze's game sometimes. And some of it is him just not being the best run after catch player, but I also think some of it is just the way that the ball was delivered to him at times as well. So Penix, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being really good. It's just, again, I think if he goes to some teams, I don't know if he's going to be able to make enough plays just within the pocket. And for you to be a pocket quarterback nowadays, like I don't want to say the pocket quarterback is dead because that's not true. Because most guys still have to win within the pocket, and it's just the added ability to win outside the pocket is what elevates them, right? But you have to have elite pocket presence. I think his pocket presence is just pretty good. You have to have elite accuracy, I think, and I think his accuracy is just good. I don't know if he has enough other elite traits outside of the fact he can't scramble to make up for that fact that I don't think he's going to make a lot of plays. And I think that's the ultimate kind of issue with a guy like him. So just kind of my 2 cents on that. But the only other guy I wanted to mention that's not in my top 5 before we kind of go 5-1 for the rest, unless you guys have other guys we haven't talked about by this point, but Jordan Travis, I want to just give a shout out to him. I think he has the tools to be an NFL player and maybe even an NFL starter tools. The issue, obviously, coming off a major injury sucks for him. So the draft process is going to be more difficult than normal for him. And I just don't think he really, even though he's an older player, like I don't think he knows how to play a quarterback at times. Like I think he's just kind of out there slinging it around. And it worked for him a lot at FSU, especially this past year before he got hurt. But there's just times where I think he sees the field particularly well. The accuracy is definitely spotty at times. I don't think he has super great control of the football, like in terms of trying to get it where it needs to go at the right times. But the physical tools definitely interest me. I'm curious if he goes on day 3, which is where I expect him to go. Will a team look to try to develop him into a starter, or is it just purely like let's just have a guy that's kind of like a high variance backup? So I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at Travis at all, but he was QB9 for me right now.
Yeah, I didn't look at Travis quite as much as the other QBs. I'm really interested in what happens with him, though. I think he's a bit of a wild card at this point, obviously coming off the injury. But yeah, I agree with pretty much everything that you said about him. So
yeah, I mean, it's just he's the guy that, like, again, the kind of the lesser of a Spencer Rattler, where it's like the tools are there, the play on the field wasn't always there in terms of like what you want to see at the NFL level and translating it to the NFL, but you look at like worth a flyer, right? Especially for a guy that's not going to have to be drafted as high. Like, you could probably get this guy in the 5th round, maybe 6th round, just because of the injuries and the question marks about his game. Like, who knows? Could end up being a flyer that works out for you, even if it's just as a backup long term or whatever. But what do you think, Felix?
Yeah, I think my biggest note on him, I only got to watch like a couple games of his.
Mm-hmm, me too.
But my biggest like note on him was what you said, Shayne, like the fact that he's in his 6th year and it still looks like he's just playing background backyard football,
Yeah.
you know, and
that's my thing.
yeah, there's not really like a rhythmic processing. There isn't necessarily a feel for the pocket.
Mm-mm.
You know, the criticisms that you hear about like running quarterbacks, quote unquote, is kind of what I see when I watch him, which is kind of alarming me in his 6th year. So, yeah, it looks like he didn't get a lot of development, which, you know, that just makes me wonder about the coaching situation there and how they develop their players.
Yeah.
Because, you know, to be in the league for a while and not, or in college for a while and not really have that, just look a little more polished is,
Yeah, it just never really happened for him.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean, again, that could be a him thing, could be coaching, could be anything. And I think NFL teams will have to decide that in terms of how highly they're willing to take him. I could see him going as early as the 4th round, just off tools. Like I could see a team taking a flyer on him. In the same way that teams take a lot of like true backup types that early, just because they want someone like that. So another team might say, well, he might not work out at all, but he could end up being a high end backup or even a low end starter. So we'll take him here in the 4th round. So that's definitely gonna be interesting to see for me, like where he goes and really where all these guys outside of the guys who are expected to go early go, because it's always kind of a crapshoot with quarterbacks once you get out of the 1st round in terms of how early they'll go and what teams think of them. But this year there could be a decent amount of day 2, day 3 guys, honestly, which is definitely gonna be interesting to say. But we'll start with our actual top 5. Now we know some of them already, but we'll come back around. So Jake, who was your top? Your 5th guy here in your top 5?
So my 5th guy is JJ McCarthy.
Okay.
We talked about him a lot last week. I went back and watched some more film because I had a little bit of a different opinion than you two guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a little bit higher on him than I was. I noticed some more things I might have not noticed before. I still have him at 5th. I would still take, 4 QBs ahead of him. But, I mean, watching the tape, he shows glimpses of what he could be in the NFL, and it's really, really, really good. He can do pretty much everything. And he's a really fun guy to watch on the tape, but the big worry for me is I'm worried that his floor isn't that high. Just because I don't think he really had to do that much at Michigan, and we just haven't got to see as much of him as some of these other QBs. So he's a little bit more of a wild card for me. But I am a little bit higher on him than I was last week.
Fair enough. Felix, where did you have JJ here, just so we can talk about him here for a second?
Funny enough, I had him as my number 5 quarterback as well.
Okay, so you have him at 5. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of the same concerns, just like he wasn't necessarily the guy, the reason, for Michigan's success. Wasn't necessarily asked to do that much. I did see statistic somebody had put out. God, it's irrelevant if I can't even cite it, but it basically was saying that he was of all the quarterbacks, 1st round caliber quarterbacks in the last 2-3 years, he was the best one on 3rd down, which very much a promising statistic to what his potential could be at the NFL level. And I think he just checks all the boxes physically. Size wise, the arm is there. He's got very good accuracy. And I think the athleticism is there to, play at this level in today's NFL, extending the play a little bit, making something happen with his legs if he has to. But I'm very curious what he's going to be like playing potentially on a team that wants to throw it 30 times, 35 times a game. When he went games this year where he threw 7 passes, I think is what he threw.
I think against Penn State, I think and part of that, honestly, when I was watching some of Chop, and I think it was actually partly because they could not block him in that game for whatever reason. And they're like, you know what? Screw it. We're not throwing the ball anymore. It really felt like that was part of it, because the couple of dropbacks he had during the game, he was getting massacred by Robinson. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I wouldn't throw it either if I didn't have to either in that situation.
Yeah.
So, but no, yeah, you're right. There were some games like that though. Yeah.
Yeah, and even in the championship game, he threw 18 times, and completed 10 of them.
Yep.
So it's not like there is this very dynamic, consistent, down to down playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I came away looking at him and just seeing like a little more accurate Brock Purdy. Like he's the product of like what's around him. He can make plays happen,
There's
but
Chef telling us about that. That's what I kind of thought too. I just can
yeah,
throw tackles off.
Yeah.
Yep. So there you go. That's probably part of it. But no, yeah, Felix, I agree. Like I think so. I'll just tell you guys since we're talking about him now, he's 4 for me. So and the reason is like in terms of guys I would take, right? There's the top 3 in whatever order, and we'll talk about that when we get to that point. I'm assuming I'll have the same top 3 in some order, maybe not the exact same order, but probably the same top 3 guys. But because of the age factor for him, so he's a younger player, obviously, than some of the other guys in this class, especially. I do think the physical gifts are totally there in terms of as a thrower. He's got very good arm strength. He's very fast in a straight line. I don't think he's as fast as some people. Like some people are saying he's wide receiver fast because like sometimes he got ahead of the running back or the receiver to help block and stuff. That's a different type of play. Like he's not doesn't have the ball. He's just straight sprinting as fast as he can to help out. He's fast, right? But I don't think he's like 4.4 fast. I think probably like high 4.5s is what I'd guess he runs if he runs. I'm not sure if he's going to, but like really good athlete. And the third down stuff is interesting because I do think that on those downs, partially like the shorter third downs, he's in really good situations because teams expect to run even in those situations sometimes. So I think it helps him. But on 3rd and like 7+, he's still awesome. So like I think there is a bit of that like playmaker, like I got to get it mentality that helps him in those situations. And when he does have the true drop back situations, he's performed well. It's just, again, like I'll just read my summary and it'll exactly sum up kind of what you guys said. McCarthy is a physically gifted quarterback who ran a run-centric offense that asked him to simply manage the game at times. While those skills will help give him a nice floor, I actually think Jake, his floor is pretty decent because I think he knows how to manage a game better than he can like take over a game at this point. Yeah. His overall lack of polish when going through reads and making difficult plays will give evaluators pause at times. If he can make good use of all of his tools as a passer and a runner, his upside is about as high as the other top quarterbacks, honestly, I think, especially like outside of like a Williams maybe. And with just 714 career passes, though, in college, he just is a bit of an unknown compared to some of these guys. Like, I think that just kind of sums him up pretty well. Like, I'm pretty sure Brady's thrown 700 passes in a season in the NFL before, like by himself, like in one season. So, like, it's just not a huge sample size, right?
Yeah.
But the tools are there, the age is there. So I just haven't bumped up a little bit partially because of that.
That's a good point, too, about being able to know how to manage a game. Because that's kind of, I guess, an insult for quarterbacks being called a game manager, you know.
Really
but it is really
it really shouldn't be.
It is especially coming into the NFL already knowing how to manage an offense. That is a pretty important trait.
There's just going to be games like even if you're an elite quarterback, there's going to be games where you're forced into it, either because the defense is just playing well, your players aren't playing that well. Maybe your defense just needs that break of like, get me a 8-play, 50-yard drive, even if it ends in a field goal, just because I need the break. Like, it's just something that a lot of quarterbacks, I don't think they do well sometimes, and more importantly, like it's viewed poorly, right? Like calling a guy a game manager when especially if he isn't, is definitely an insult. Like because you don't want to make them think that like, oh well, this guy can't make plays, he can't take over games, he doesn't try to do crazy stuff. But being able to be a game manager is way more important than people think. It just is. Like you have to be able to do that sometimes. I mean, look at Mahomes this year, right? Like, his average like touchdown like is like 4 yards, right? It's not because he like can't throw a 20-yarder. It's just they've had to kind of move the ball slowly down the field. The big plays aren't happening. Like he has to kind of just work them down the field and get in position to make plays down the stretch of games a lot of the time, and it's just not going to equal a lot of big plays. Doesn't mean Patrick Mahomes is the game manager. It just means he's had to manage the game a little bit more these past 2 years, especially without a guy like Hill and Kelsey slowing down. So that's just what it is. So I don't think McCarthy's floor is really my concern. It's more so can he make good on the ceiling that his tools suggest he could have. That is very much up in the air because we haven't seen enough of him doing those things.
Yeah.
So, but Felix, let me move to you. So you said your top 5 was McCarthy as well. Who do you have at 4?
Number 4, I have Spencer Rattler.
Okay, so Rattler's 4. All right.
Yeah.
All right, I can understand that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like what I said before. I think all the physical tools are there. I know it can be the downfall of some quarterbacks, but I appreciate a quarterback that has that gunslinger like mentality where it's like 3rd and 20 and he's looking like all right, let's go make
let's get
this
21 yards or more, right?
yeah,
Like he's not trying to check it down or anything.
exactly. And and it's yeah, it's like it's something that you obviously have to reel in, especially in the league, the professional league where they're bigger, faster, stronger. The windows are going to be tighter and everything like that. But I think he has the arm talent to get him to that level of being able to fit the tight windows, being able to hit those throws that are more difficult to make. I think something that was very understated about his game was the fact that he was so much under pressure and all the time, and he was able to manage the amount of turnovers that he was giving up. And then I think something that strikes me is that he played at South Carolina, and I'm a little bit biased because I went to college down in South Carolina. I went to South Carolina games. They are like, I don't know, even though they have so much love down there, they feel like Kentucky and the SEC to me. It's just like they're outmatched.
Yeah, a
And
lot of games they were, yeah.
a lot of games they went into it with this like clear understanding. Everyone's like they're gonna lose. And I mean they lost what 30 something to 17, I think, to UNC.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
But when you watch like that game in particular, outside of Xavier Legette, there's no one else that's really like a viable difference maker on the offense. The line is the most porous line maybe ever. I don't know. And yet,
you see this year, I would say, yeah.
And somehow he was still getting up after he's getting hit, scrambling around and extending the play. Even if he decides eventually, like, all right, I'm just going to check it down. Like he
tried to look for more and then still was able to find the check down.
Exactly.
That's something I noticed a lot, specifically in the Clemson game, since we already talked about him a good bit. So we'll I want to give my top five or my fifth guy here in a second too, but so we can talk about him. But in the Clemson game, I counted like 6 drops, I think. It felt like I don't think all of them were considered drops, but they were balls from like you got to catch that in the situation type of ones. And I'm like, man, like there's checkdowns, running back just didn't catch it, or I think the first play of that game for them on offense was like a screen out to the receiver, and he just didn't catch it, got destroyed, and then they returned it for a touchdown on a fumble recovery. And I'm like, what is going on? He was right in his hands too. It wasn't one of those like, oh no, like reaching out where he's like just pop right in the air, and I'm like, what is going on? Like the first play of the game, you don't catch a screen pass. Like this is literally meant to get the game going, and you drop the ball behind the line of scrimmage. It's like, I don't know. It was wild. So with him though, Jake, like I know we talked about him, Jake. We're kind of in the same agreement of like him being like a high-end developmental quarterback type that might end up becoming a starter if in the right situation.
I would love to see him have like a Jordan Love type of situation. I think that would be perfect for him.
He needs just some time to reset after what he just went through. 2 years.
But I definitely understand having him as QB4 though.
Yeah, considering the quarterbacks in this class, like especially outside the top 3, I think a case can be made for anybody with his tools to be in that conversation for like top 5. So I'll give my 5th just because I skipped over it because I was talking about McCarthy. It's a guy that I don't know if any of you are going to have in your top 5 now that we're at this point, especially. I think, Jake, you said he's 6 for you. Bo Nix is 5 for me. And it's pretty much just comes down to the fact I think he's probably just going to be a pretty good starter. Like, I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a good starting quarterback. Do I think he's ever going to be a great one? Probably not. Do I think he's going to be a bad one? I still think probably not either. I think he's kind of going to be in that, like, at best, maybe like 15, 16 through 25, like somewhere in that range, because the things he does well are just very repeatable and translatable. The accuracy is very much there. The ability to be a point guard on offense, the athletic ability to get out of stuff if he needs to. He shows that some of his Auburn days show up, but usually not the bad Auburn stuff, but more of like the good, like I'm running around and making a play Auburn stuff. It's just, again, I think when he starts attacking downfield, the accuracy drops off a little bit. I don't think his arm is quite as good as some of the other guys in the top 4 or 5 that we're going to be talking about. It's good. It's just not to a level where I'm like, oh, that's like a plus trait. It's more just like it'll be good enough in the NFL type of thing. Yeah. Again, the athleticism helps him out a lot. It's kind of the differentiating factor between Penix and him for me. Is I think both of these guys could end up being really good starters, but with Nix, it feels like there's less chance that he just falls apart because of the situation around him, right? It feels like he might be able to overcome some of the stuff that maybe Penix couldn't. And that's really kind of really the only thing that's separating those two, other than medicals, of course, too, with Penix. But yeah, I just think he's a good player. I don't know if he'll ever be a great one, like I said, but if I'm picking in like not as high as I've heard him go, like in the top 12 or so, I don't love that much. But if I'm picking in like the mid to late first round and I want a quarterback that I at least like can say like I can plug him in pretty early and I think I'll be good on offense, he can just run whatever I want him to run. Nix would probably be that guy for me.
Yeah. When Dalton was on last week, I think he made a good point. He said that Nix can come in and pretty much, as you said, just be good his rookie year. And I think I don't think it's a long shot that he could be in the right spot, offensive rookie of the year candidate next year, because I think he's probably going to be one of the best QBs in their rookie season, but I don't, I don't think it's going to get much higher than that. But I think he's just a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy.
Yep,
for me.
I agree.
But I mean, for some teams in this draft, he'd be an excellent pick. So.
Yeah, like I think the Broncos, before I let you talk about them for a second, Felix, I think the Broncos, if they trade down, I'd like to see them trade down, get some more assets, then maybe take a guy like Nix. Because I think Peyton would love a player like him that could just be like, all right, here's what I want you to do. Go do it. Don't really care what you think about it. You're just going to have to go do it, and we'll deal with it later. Like, that's the type of quarterback he clearly wants. Russell Wilson was not that guy and isn't going to be that guy. So that would make a lot of sense to me, but there's other places too for sure. But what did you think about him, Felix?
Yeah, it's funny. I think I had him as QB6, so he was my guy that just missed the top 5. And I think my biggest concerns were overall, I wonder about consistency, because I think there's a lot of players that get to well, at least at quarterback, that get to Oregon, and there are a few that are able to have that like level of play duplicate itself over to the pro level. And when you watch what he did at Auburn, and obviously he was a younger player, I do find it interesting that he was this very much backyard football guy.
Yep, gunslinger type,
And then once he gets to Oregon, where it's like, hey, don't think that much and do this. Now he's blowing it up, and he looks like this super efficient quarterback. But as we've seen, like the spread offense and that being your consistent down-to-down approach schematically isn't like the most efficient or replicatable thing in the NFL level. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger. Those windows that open up a little bit more, they're still tighter than what they were at the professional level, or what they were at the collegiate level. And you're going to be facing professional level, defenders. You know what I mean? So him being able to improvise like he did at Auburn, is that going to be the like sort of premier thing that he starts to focus on, because guys are faster and the game's faster and guys are, reacting to his passes faster? Or is he going to be a guy that stays within structure as a diehard player and does not utilize the athleticism that he does have? And I just wonder, where on the spectrum is he going to fall? And I think, kind of like you said in the comparison to like Penix, it depends where he goes. And I think he's one of those, if he ended up on a team that's got a lot of really good pieces around him, he's going to excel pretty fast. And Denver's one that I think they have a lot of really good, solid pieces offensively. So, I think it depends where he lands, but I still think he's a good prospect. I had him at 6. He just missed it. He's kind of right there with McCarthy for me. So
I gave McCarthy the nod over him because of the age factor, the talent factor a little bit as well. Like I think that if I had to bet money on which one of them was going to start like 80 plus games in the NFL, I'd probably easily take Nix, just because I'm pretty confident he's going to do that. But I can't say for sure, like I said, that he's going to be this like high upside player. I don't think he will. I think he's just, again, if you need somebody to play and you want him to be able just to run what you tell him to run, not much better in terms of that other than obviously the very top guys who are just better than these guys. Like, not much better you can do than Nix, in my opinion, for that. But let's get to top threes then, because I think we talked about all of our top fours at this point, right? Yeah. So, all right, I'll send it over to Felix this time first. Actually, who do you have at 3? Because this is kind of the wild card, I think, for all of us, maybe.
Yeah. Number 3 for me is Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
Uh, I love the athletic ability. Obviously, I think he has a plus. He has plus arm talent.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that I appreciated about his game that I didn't necessarily realize, before I started watching tape, was that he is a pretty solid. Um, he's a pretty solid like anticipatory thrower, and it's something that kind of stuck out to me in that like I think it gets made up for a lot because he has like elite talent at wide receiver. But I did appreciate that there are times where he goes through his progressions. He knows where he has to go with the ball, and when he takes off, he understands like I'm taking off because the pocket is collapsing, and I don't really have like a discernible target that's open at this moment. So I think though something that gets a little overstated is the athletic factor. I think it's something that's good for him, but to me, he's a very linear type of runner. He's a straight line runner. He doesn't have the wiggle in space like a Lamar Jackson or someone like that. So to talk about him like a running quarterback and a guy that's gonna, take a game over with his legs, I could see him maybe busting off like a 40-yard run, but it's not going to be a consistent theme because he can't, shake someone out their shoes. He's not able to. He doesn't have that wiggle. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that kind of bumps him down just a little bit. If he was a guy that could do that in space, and then he had the arm talent, and you could sit there and go, okay, I could develop him as a passer to what I want at an NFL standard. He's got the athleticism in spades. I'm like, oh, that's great. But once he starts moving like east and west, he's got to go north. Otherwise,
Yeah.
there's not really like an extension on the play or anything like that. So I had him as like a clear 3, but I do think he's like a top 20 player.
Yeah, I think we've seen relatively similarly. I'll just throw this out there. Dave, whoever you are, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Thank
Shout
you
out
guys. Absolutely. Another comment actually. Jaden Daniels is going to learn fast how I'm assuming how quick those holes
Yeah.
I'm assuming close in the NFL. For me, with Daniels, he is my 3 as well. And it's I think I'm a little bit closer between him and May than a lot of people are, and it's mostly just the athleticism. You can say that like the wiggle is definitely not there as much as some other guys, which is true. When he takes off, though, man, it's just like a different level of speed than we typically see at the quarterback position, even among some guys in the league that have that speed, right? Like it's just it's something that is just it's a factor for teams because if it's 3rd and 10 and the pocket's collapsing and they give him a lane to run through, it's 1st and 10 again. Like they're not probably going to keep him from getting 10 plus yards. Like just some of the runs against Florida in particular just don't make sense in my brain. Like how he outran every single one of those dudes in an SEC defense is just hilarious to me. Like it looked like they were standing still at times whenever he was running on them. And I think as much as like he's a very good passer, which is why I'm not as worried about like the wiggle stuff that you talked about, Felix. Like I don't think he has to use his legs as much as he did in college in the NFL because one, I think the pass protection, depending on where he goes, could end up being better. And I think that it matters who drafts him. And I do think when we get to our mock drafts, we'll see how that goes in terms of where the quarterbacks go. But I just the only thing I'm really worried about with him mostly is when he does run, and I've seen this comp thrown around a lot. He looks like a damn Looney Tunes character when he gets hit. It's insane. He just like flips up over his heels, like gets sent 12 yards backwards. It's like he's a slighter guy. Like he's listed at 210. I'd be surprised if he's any heavier than that. He's probably like 6'2, 6'3, not 6'4. He's a smaller guy. So if he's going to run as much as he did, or even half as much as he did in college, which it's a big weapon for him, so he has to. He's either got to bulk up a little bit and maybe lose a little bit of juice, or he has to just stop getting plastered every time he runs. Like I don't know. It's really tough with him. He does have a top 10 grade from like I would take him inside the top 10 as a quarterback. I think he'll be the 3rd guy off the board. I don't think he'll jump May or anything like that. But just the stuff that he does do well, like pushing the ball down the field, was elite at pushing the ball down the field to his receivers. Now, granted, he had elite receivers to push the ball downfield too, but his efficiency on downfield throws was remarkably good at the end of the college level. Like stuff you just don't see, regardless of NFL talent, whatever else. You just don't see numbers like that. And I think that that's something that can, in the right situation, be replicated. And I think that's a big part of it. Like the deep ball is kind of losing its juice in the NFL right now because of the too high coverages and the shells and stuff like that. But it's still a weapon that you can use if you have the opportunity to. And I think he would make good on a lot of those opportunities that you get. So I did want to get to a comment real quick here, Jake, before I let you talk about Daniels here. So, guys, can you see a world where the Chargers trade with the Raiders or Broncos, both quarterback needing teams? Yes, actually, I do. I think it depends on how badly the Chargers like whoever's going to probably be at 5. But I do think if teams want to jump ahead of, the Giants, maybe Felix, or if the Giants even want to come up one spot to prevent teams from jumping, if a quarterback is really important to them and they really like the guy that's there, that's definitely something I could see happening. So might even see it in the mock draft we do. We'll see what happens. But anyway, what do you want to talk about with Daniels here, Jake? Add to that.
Yeah, so Daniels is my number 2.
Okay.
I'm really, really high on him. The concerns are valid. He looks like how someone would get tackled in a cartoon.
Exactly. Like he just looks like a cartoon, like a Looney Tunes character. Like it's like fake almost. It's weird. It's kind of crazy.
I just love his game though. As a runner, he reminds me of Justin Fields a little bit.
Yeah.
In terms of just Felix, I think hit it right on the head with his linear speed.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best change of direction, but like when he picks a direction.
But he looks comfortable, and I think he feels a little too comfortable with the hits he takes sometimes. But I love his arm. I think he's just a great thrower of the football. I saw a lot of times where and it's easier to throw receivers open when you're throwing to Neighbors and Thomas. Like I will say that, So, but something I noticed was he makes back shoulder throws well. He's able to anticipate, especially in one-on-one coverage where the receiver is going to be open. I saw a lot of times where he threw the receiver open, but I don't really know how that's going to be at the NFL level because he did have 2 of the best receivers in the class. Mm-hmm. So, and another thing, as the comment said, those holes are going to close quicker in the NFL.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to see how he adjusts, but I think his ceiling is a Lamar Jackson type of player. And so because of that, I have him above May at number 2.
Yeah. And I get that. Again, I think one thing I wanted to mention too, and this is just something that I noticed in the games I watched. I'll have to watch even some more of them as we go through the process, but it does feel like he generates a lot of his velocity with his lower half, which is ideal for when you're in the pocket. But I do think in scramble situations, sometimes he doesn't have as much juice on throws out of structure. And it's not so much that it's an issue. Yeah, it's not that it's like an issue, but it is something I noticed where he has really good arm talent. But I think a lot of that is whenever he's got his feet set in the pocket, and it's not as easy for him to generate velocity when he's not just standing still. So
I almost think when he's scrambling, he's so focused on just running that because of that, his throwing mechanics on the run
they do suffer a
they
little
aren't
bit, probably
as great. But I think at the NFL, that's something that
he can definitely improve on that. But I just noticed that's something I noticed because a lot of guys like you see like they just have like the whippy throwing motion. Like Lamar, it doesn't have to have his feet set. He barely even has it set half the time he throws. Honestly, feels like Rodgers obviously has that like ability just to kind of do whatever. Like I just don't think he has that in his bag the same way that maybe some other guys would. But so you obviously said May is going to be your 3rd then, because I'm assuming, right? Because Daniels is 2. So I'm assuming Felix 2. You and I have May at 2 then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's just talk about Drake May real quick, and then we can get to number 1, who we kind of expected it to be. For me with May, and I just want to kind of read my summary of him real quick because I think it'll kind of sum up things pretty well for what I think about him. May is a big, powerful passer with enough athleticism to be a playmaker out of structure. He routinely made NFL-level throws throughout his college career and left no doubt about his ability to create big plays. He will need to improve his pocket presence and speed up his eyes a little bit if he wants to avoid mistakes that he made in college and the NFL. The majority of his attempts came in the very middle of the field at all depths, so working on locating underneath defenders will be a priority for his coaching staff. The thing that I noticed with him when he threw to like kind of those like second level throws is sometimes he didn't locate that underneath defender and he threw some picks doing that. And that's something that I do worry about a little bit early in his career. I think that's something that he has to get used to, and just his eyes have to be a little bit better and be able to see with like peripheral vision, like what kind of defenders are you getting underneath the throws and getting them up over those guys, right? Like there's a pick he threw to Minnesota where I'm telling you, I don't know how he didn't see the guy, but he threw it right to him. It was kind of crazy. I'm like, whoa, hold on. I had to go back and watch it a couple of times. Like, yikes. Like, some of that he has some of that in him. And I think that that's stuff that can be fixed. Like, it's not that he doesn't, he read the play behind it good. It's just, I think he just needs to do a better job of checking underneath before he tries to throw, like lasers, especially. Right. But again, all the tools you could ever ask for as a thrower, just ripped some seams, some like hole shots down the sideline. Like, he can do all that stuff. The hard stuff comes to him pretty easily. Some of the easier stuff, though, I think needs improvement on a little bit. But I know, Felix, you had him at 2, so I'll get your opinion first, and then Jake, you can tell us kind of why you have him behind Daniels there.
Yeah, I think it's funny. He ticks all the physical boxes, in terms of not just the arm talent, but the frame, the mobility that fits the league.
Yeah.
Something that I did like about him, and it's something that I mentioned with Rattler, was I do like the fact that he's a gamer of a quarterback.
Yes, he is, for sure.
He doesn't shy away from that challenge. He doesn't shy away from throwing to where he thinks is going to be like the playmaking, throw. And that tough mentality, that goldfish mentality, I think is really important. And I think to just go outside of like what you illustrated, because I agree with like basically all the points that you brought up. I thought he has the arm talent, but he doesn't layer as good as
sometimes. Yeah, it's like he doesn't realize he has to. Sometimes I think it's like he can when he knows he has to do it, but there's times where I think he just chooses not to because he doesn't see somebody or he thinks it's just not the right type of throw. So, and he's a younger guy still. Like, I don't want to say that he can't get better at that, but it is something that I think flashed multiple times when watching him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, I just think what really stuck out to me, and I said again, same thing about Rattler. That's part of why I had him at 4.
Right.
But May they were the North Carolina Drake Mays. Like, they didn't have even Tez Walker. Yeah. Tez Walker's going to go day 3. There's no other.
He had some issues himself. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no real discernible like difference maker on that offense that you look at them and like an opposing team would say, okay, who do we have to shut down to limit what May is doing? It's more like, let's just get in May's face, because everyone could pretty much be in single coverage. Maybe we double Tez, but like the fact that he had to elevate this roster week in, week out, it's always the May show, was something that I think I take into account, because you get to the pro level, everyone's a professional player. And now it's a bit more of a level playing field in terms of what you are bringing to the table, because it's not always about talent. It could be schematics as well. It could be how you game plan. And I think he just does everything, or he has the capability to do everything at an exceptional level. It's just about the consistency. It's about the, like you said, understanding the type of throw he has to make to a certain window, the like sometimes maybe not take this shot downfield that's likely going to get incomplete and give my running back a shot. But I did see those plays where he extended and he's under pressure. He flicks it out, last second. He's trying to make something happen. He's very heads up at times. So I like him a lot, actually. I think, to me, he has maybe the highest floor outside of Nix, because I think he's going to be a guy that no matter the situation around him, he's going to play beyond that talent, and elevate it. So that's why I had him too.
Yeah, that's fair. What did you think, Jake, with him?
Yeah, I like the fact that you brought up Felix, his supporting cast at UNC, because that was the first thing I was going to say, was compared to pretty much any other like consensus top 5 QB in this class, I think he had the worst supporting cast. So the fact that he showed as much as he did is really impressive to me. And I do have Daniels higher, but it's not like a slight at Drake May. I just think that they're like right there and there. I think Daniels' ceiling is a little bit higher, and that's why I have him at 2. But I will say for sure, I think May has a higher floor than Daniels.
Yeah, I would say
just
so.
Because he really kind of can do everything. When I was watching his film, it kind of reminded me of Josh Allen a bit.
I saw a lot of Herbert personally. That's what I saw a lot.
Yeah. He reminded me of Josh Allen. Obviously not as good of a runner as Josh was coming out of college, but in terms of that like gamer mentality, And I think that's part of the reason I had his ceiling a little lower, just because I am worried a little bit about the decision making and turnovers at the next level. But he's young, and I think that's a pretty common thing with young QBs. So I don't think it's a huge issue. But yeah, I mean, I think both of you guys pretty much hit it on the head.
I think in most years he'd be the top quarterback. Like, especially if a Daniels like a freak athlete, straight line speed type of guy wasn't there too. Like it's fun. He's got that Josh Allen bozo gene. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's as Tony will tell you. Josh Allen, for as great as he is, sometimes he just be dumb sometimes and just do dumb stuff, and that's okay when you're an absolute freak and can just do whatever you want most of the time. You can live with it, but. Yeah, I saw a lot of Herbert in his game, especially like just the way they throw. Like it feels like he just like it just flies out of their hand. It's insane to watch it. Like it's really crazy. And the one thing I'll mention too that I didn't really mention is like his accuracy is generally very good. In fact, sometimes it's unbelievable. There's just some misses sometimes that I can't really figure out where they're coming, like why they happen. Like it doesn't seem like his mechanics are that off or anything on those throws. Just like they just don't get where they're supposed to go. And I'm not necessarily worried about it, but I am just curious, like, wonder what exactly is causing that to happen. If it's just like maybe sometimes it's miscommunications and I just don't realize it or whatever. But there were some weird misses at times with him. But you kind of get that with every quarterback, though. So I'm not super worried about it. But let's talk about our top guy, since we all have the same top guy, I assume, right? A quick comment here, real quick, guys. Do you think, I'm assuming with the Patriots shopping the third pick? Quarterback purgatory is the thing. Get the guy when you can get him. I think the problem with the Patriots is if you ask me whether or not they should definitely take a quarterback, I need to wait till we'll see what they do with free agency. Because if their receiving core is still the same as it is right now by the time free agency is over, which it won't be, I can't imagine. But if it's similar, if you take a quarterback, you better be prepared to not play him for a little bit. Then, in my opinion, because I do not want to see a quarterback as a young player come into that offense and try to do something. It's not going to be good. It's just not. Like, I'd rather just let Bailey Zappi go out there and play out the string and just give up for most of next year if you're going to do that. Like, build up something. No, you're good, man. Sorry, guys, my computer's no, you're good. But no, like, I think that they should take one. Like, they should set themselves up to take one, whichever one is there. But I do worry about, like, what is that setup going to look like year one if they ask that guy to start. Now, if they don't, then I don't really care what they do this year. I think it matters more next year. But I am curious to see how much of an emphasis they put on building up the offense in order to bring a rookie quarterback in who can then maybe succeed a little bit in year one. But what do you guys think with that?
I agree pretty much. I think with their current situation, you definitely don't take a quarterback. And I think trading and I think trading back is the best way to get more assets for when you do want to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What do you think, Felix?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's that first team where the question mark pops up is or not. And I could honestly see them trading because it's not just like it's not just the team makeup and the lack of like an offensive supporting cast per se, but like you take into account that Bill Belichick had been there for a while and as a GM was horrible. They don't have like even the depth behind their starters to have a quality team, period. So they need to find starters at like multiple levels and multiple avenues in order to make this like a competitive roster in any way. And you have a first time head coach, Gerard Mayo played in this league, so he knows the stakes and everything like that. But I think having a well-rounded roster is going to be the more ideal thing because they could even get our top guy, Caleb Williams somehow at 3. And I think that would almost torpedo his career because they just don't have anything. That's
it's really tough. Yeah. You guys got me amped up. Is Mac Jones salvageable?
No.
Depends what you mean by salvageable. Is he as bad as he looked the past 2 years? Probably not. The Patriots were really bad on offense past years. Is he ever going to be the guy for a team? No. I think he's, high end backup, maybe a starter in like a Shanahan scheme where he doesn't actually have to really do anything except just be like, drop it off, let's go, keep going.
Yeah.
Like it's just not what he was asked to be. I don't think he'll be that. Let me put it that way. Let's get into Williams here, guys. Right, let's talk about him for a little bit. Plenty has been said about Caleb Williams at this point, so we're not going to probably tell you guys anything too groundbreaking about his evaluation. But yeah, that dude pretty good, I would say. That's kind of my thing, but I'll start with my summary of him again, just because I've been trying to do that for these guys. Definitely has the longest one, I think. Williams is an ultra talented thrower with plenty of athleticism and creativity as a playmaker. He can make every throw with little effort and is not afraid to challenge defenses down the field. He's excellent running RPOs that take advantage of his quick release and ability to change arm slots. He's a legitimate threat as a runner on read option calls and as a scrambler. Despite all his strengths, his processors is still a bit slow for me on tape, but I think that's part of the offense that he plays into. It kind of makes it harder for him to make quick reads because it just kind of feels like it's all out of whack most of the time. He often had to see his receiver open before throwing instead of throwing with anticipation, just because, again, I think it was kind of how the offense was built, though. He was late on his throws multiple times, but his arm bailed him out. He just, sometimes if he's late, it just doesn't matter because it still gets there when most guys would get it there. His deep ball is very good, but he did miss a few that I was like, I probably wants those back. But again, the offense was kind of out of rhythm a lot of times this year. His upside makes him worthy of being the number one pick, but he may start out slow a little bit depending on what the Bears do around him. I think year one, I think it's possible he could start off a little slow. But again, easy top pick for me. I don't think there's any question whether you take him at 1. I'm not a Fields hater by any means, but I definitely don't think you don't take Williams just to keep him around. So definitely think he needs to be traded and moved on. But what do you guys think about Williams? Or anything you want to add to that? Anything you want to throw in there with that?
He's just really good. There were
groundbreaking, Felix. We did it. He's good.
There were a couple times watching his film where he just made throws that I legitimately made my jaw drop.
He can do some wild stuff.
Couldn't wrap my head around it. I do think the offense held him back a little bit.
Yeah.
At least the scheme.
It was weird.
I don't think it fit him
the best.
Offense.
Just a weird offense.
But the fact that he looked as good as he did in an offense that I don't think fit him the best makes me really encouraged. But I think we all know he's just really good.
Yeah. What do you think, Felix?
Yeah, no, I think stylistically, if you're getting compared to someone like Patrick Mahomes and you can throw off platform and change your arm slots, and what gets me is not just that he can do all of that, but he's one of the only prospects that we've seen in the last few years that can throw off platform, throw from a variety of arm slots, and still have the velocity that is top notch. I mean, there's one play that always sticks out in my head, and it's the most wide open throw ever, but he's running fully to his left, and he's fully running to his left with the ball here, and literally kind of does this little leap in the air, and he throws it over his shoulder. It's not sidearm or the normal sort of mechanic. He just pops backwards, jumps backwards, and just flicks it real quick. And it's just the ball doesn't even look like it's spinning. It looks
I know exactly what you're talking about. That was one of the plays. I looked at that and I was like, dude, how can you he literally just flicked his wrist. And just insane.
A perfect beeline ball. And I was just just Jesus, and he's another player that you guys said, scheme. I don't think the scheme was that great. It's not.
Yeah, Dave asked this question: is it possible Lincoln Riley's offense is fool's gold? I think this past year, yes. I think for the most part, Riley's air raid has always been very effective. But when you have a quarterback like Williams, I think I think he banked on his talent too often of just figure it out. I don't know. And I don't think he'll do that with everybody, but I do think with Williams, I think maybe he got a little complacent at times with him. So,
and I know they had Cliff Kingsbury, right, as offensive
coordinator. Washington. Man,
I don't know how much was Cliff just oh yeah, he's a bigger Kyler. Let's just let him play backyard ball and run around and throw it. And Caleb's sure, man, I can do it because
I don't have to. You can.
Yeah, and I think the thing is about Caleb is all the highlight reel kind of plays, and then the fact that USC got stomped on so much this year.
Their defense basically didn't exist.
Their
so
defense
that.
Horrible. Yeah, so the fact
Grinch stole defense, my guys. That's
the fact that happened.
Alex Grinch.
People really forget that he could do all of the typical
structure stuff. Yeah,
well, he can do all of that very well. So. Yeah, I just and he's another one that I look at and I say I don't really look at the supporting cast and say that there's something there that really can bail him out. Defense wise, there's nothing. Brendan Rice is a 5th rounder or 6th rounder to me.
With the way he separated at times, not awesome. I think Taj Washington's a good deep threat guy, but he's not
Yeah.
like this premium draft pick. They didn't have actually my favorite offensive player maybe for this draft that's not Williams in their roster is probably Lloyd, running back.
Yes. Yeah.
Like we'll get to running backs next week, but
Yeah.
that might be the best player he played with last year in terms of
Yeah.
like NFL talent. So
And then you add no defense, and it's just like, of course, he's dropping back on 3rd and 18 and trying to run around and make a awesome, like, game-changing play, and then maybe he gets sacked, and people will sit there and be like, "Oh, his decision making." And I'm like, no, he's doing what I would probably do in that
Yeah,
situation.
he
Like,
does what I do on Madden when I am losing by 20 points, and I'm just gonna throw it 50 yards every single time and get picked
yeah,
off.
he's like, let me wing it, and like maybe I can make something happen. And he's got the arm to do it,
Yeah.
That's what I just think. He's head and shoulders above like the other quarterbacks for me. Like I think he's the clear top prospect at the position.
Yeah, I think we can agree on that for sure. I think that's definitely where we're at with Williams, and that's where we're at with the quarterback class. Definitely let us know what you guys think. But we are going to jump over, speaking of who the first pick should be. Let's jump over. We'll try to make it a little bit quicker than last time, but let's get over to our mock draft here. So let me pull that up for you guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to use, of course, PFF. As much as I have a love-hate relationship with PFF, I do use their mock draft because it's just the best one that there is, right? So, all right, let's jump over here. So I will be doing odds. We talked about this pre-show, guys. We just so you guys know as well, here is the stipulations for this one. We can make up to 2 trades between ourselves. So it has to be between the 2 sides. So Jake and Felix will be doing evens. I'll be doing odds. So if I want to move up, it has to be to an even spot. If they want to move up to an odd spot, vice versa. And we also have to have 5 quarterbacks go at some point during this draft, right? We're going to get it probably most of them out of the way pretty early, but we need to see at least 5 because I think there's going to be at least 5 that probably go. So let's jump into this. So I'm picking first. I think you guys know exactly who I'm going to go with.
Drake May.
Drake May after all this time. No, Caleb, welcome to the Bears. No questions there. Washington, are you guys going to debate the Daniels May thing? Do you guys want to have that conversation, or is it something where you kind of feel like they're interchangeable? What do you guys think there?
So, I mean, I have Daniels at 2, but I honestly think May might be a better fit in Washington. So,
okay, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go May here as people expect to happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it. Now, as the Patriots, here's the thing: I was debating, like, do I throw this pick on the market to you guys? Do I say, hey, does somebody want to come up for this pick? Give me some good stuff. Try to come up and get this. But what I'm actually going to do, I really would love to take Daniels here, but I'm going to go with the idea that maybe the Patriots aren't sold on whoever the third quarterback is going to be. Maybe they're like, he's good. We think he's good, but we're not sure if we're ready to have a quarterback come in and play right away and, all that stuff. I'm sticking and picking. I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. right here at 3. That's what I'm doing. So now you guys are on the clock before, obviously, the Cardinals. I'm sure the Cardinals would love to move out of the spot with Marvin Harrison gone, even though I think Neighbors is really good too. But looking at myself here, because you'd have to trade with me, the first team that it would even be consider would be the Vikings moving up possibly for Daniels. But I don't know if that's the type of player that they would want in the offense that they run. So I'm actually not going to offer trade here. So you guys just have to decide what player do you want to go with for the Cardinals. What would you do if Harrison Jr. is off the board here?
I think this is a very interesting debate. I know last week I had mentioned bringing in Brock Bowers. I know they have Trey McBride, but I think what Bowers brings to the table as an athlete and then as a route runner, I think he can get moved along the formation in any way that they would like. And then McBride flashed a little bit of that flexibility in terms of like his athleticism. But I do lean Neighbors because they do not have a clear number 1. I think their best receiver is probably Michael Wilson. So I really don't see them neglecting the receiver position. So
yeah, I think it's either Bowers or Neighbors here for sure. I think they might need Neighbors a little bit more than they need Bowers.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys go Neighbors here then?
Yeah.
All right, I actually agree with that there. Pick 5. So this is now where Daniels is sitting on the board here at 5, right? Now, we didn't decide this quite yet, so you guys can decide this now. Are the Falcons or the Steelers going to be trading for Justin Fields in this scenario?
Silence.
That's the decision here, because I think depending on that decision, it could impact what you guys, whether you want to try to move up to this spot if you're either the Falcons or maybe even the Giants, Felix, right? Depending on how you feel about that. So I figured, why don't we have that conversation now? Just get that out of the way. And like, I'm not going to make the trade because it's not going to be for first round pick anyway. But which of those teams do you want to send Fields to in this hypothetical?
I feel like he might be a better fit in Atlanta, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know though.
I haven't heard this myself, Dave, so I'll have to check this out. But yeah, I do think those are the two favorites to land him right now, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So it's going to be one of those two, I think. But yeah, whichever you guys you want to do, like I said, I'll go with that, and then we can.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference, Felix?
I'll go Falcons, because as much as I would like the Falcons to like get Jayden Daniels, Fields is still younger and is going to be the same sort of dynamic athlete at the position, and him in that offense, I think would be really great.
I agree.
So
Flogger to the Chargers, Jeff. Yeah, I think I'm gonna. I don't know if I'll stick and pick here or not. But so Falcons are getting Fields in this situation. Not going to be trading up for quarterback. The question is, do you guys want to, if you're Felix right at 6, do you want to just try to jump up real quick and guarantee yourself Daniels, or do you want to see if someone else, or do you want to have someone else come up ahead of them, right? Because like you could look at teams right here, like you could see a Broncos maybe want to do that, right? Like I could see that very much. It's probably just the Broncos and the Giants who'd be fighting for this pick in this situation. So you guys have been kind of decide if you want to have that debate or if you want to just let me stick and pick, and then you guys will have 6 to do whatever you want with.
I personally, unless it's maybe May or Williams, I don't.
Gotcha.
Giants will trade up. As much as I like Daniels, but I don't know if they'll do it. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. You agree with that one then, Jake?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, I'm sticking and picking. And for me, the debate is between Joe Alt and Brock Bowers, despite Jeff chiming in with the Talise Fuaga. I get that because we know what the Chargers want to do with who they hired a coordinator and who they hired a coach. We know they want to run the ball. And I think Alt's a really good run blocker, though, too. Like, Fuaga's probably a better one, of course. It's kind of his main thing. And he does play right tackle, where Slater plays left. But I think Alt, if you wanted to go tackle, could definitely move to the right side. I think he's athletic enough to make that switch and make that work pretty quickly. But for me, I just can't help but see, like, if you're going to hire Greg Roman as your offensive coordinator, give him a tight end that he feels comfortable throwing to, because he's only probably going to throw to him. Like, that's just what it is, right? If you're going to be in that situation, you might as well have a great one, right? And I think he blocks well enough to help in the run game. I don't think he's a dominant blocker, but for his size, I think he's very good. Could be a move piece if they want to move him around. I think he can play in line if you need him to, but he would just be a really nice weapon to add to that group while also still sort of fitting what Roman's going to be trying to do. So for me, I'm going Bowers here at 5. He could end up going anywhere in the first 20 picks, in my opinion, but I'm going to take him off the board here. So now the Giants are on the clock with you guys here, Felix. You have your pick of tackles if you don't trust the Evan Neal situation ever working out. You have, you have a wide receiver here with the Doomsday. You have Daniels is still on the board at quarterback here, if I can find him here somewhere. But yeah, so you have your options here for sure.
I personally, I hope and pray this is what happens if the board falls the way it has in our mock. I really want the Giants to trade back, so badly. I want them to just acquire a ton of capital and try to build up the roster more. I just, you got the odds, so I don't know who would be willing to make a move to go up now to get Daniels. Maybe Broncos, but they're even.
Yeah, so you guys won't be able to do that in this scenario, but
yeah, and I don't know if the Raiders would love Daniels.
I was going to say this could be a spot where the Raiders trade up.
Yeah,
I don't know how in love they are with the idea of trading up, but if they did, I think this would probably be.
That's what I was going to say. Is I think if you guys wanted to make a move with the pick here, I'd be looking at the Raiders, because I don't think the Vikings. I really think they're going to sign Cousins again and push that can down the road. I think that's what their game plan is right now. If that doesn't work out, then I could see them trying to make a move up to get one of these guys. But I still think Daniels is maybe not the best fit for what Kevin O'Connell wants to do. I think it would definitely work. It just might not be a seamless fit there, right? So for me, I think that if you guys wanted to try to trade this pick, we'd have to work something out with the Raiders, and it would just be, do you guys think that would be something that would happen in this situation?
I personally can see like Joe Shayne and the Giants moving down, particularly because ownership apparently loves Daniel Jones for whatever stupid reason. And then I don't know if they would be very high on Jaden Daniels, even though I think he would be a good fit in Daboll's scheme.
Mhm.
But I could see the Raiders really liking Daniels, and I think having
There's the
Antonio,
connection with Antonio Pierce there as
yeah,
well from Arizona
especially
State.
Antonio Pierce, and then they don't have a clear answer at they're going to run it back with Aiden O'Connell, like
God,
That
I hope
seems like the
not.
most likely thing as of right now.
yeah. So I
But
think for them to compete how they did under AP, and then we'll see what they do in free agency. Like quarterback was the one position that was just like, what? They have nothing there. So I think if they
yeah.
plug that, they could be a competitive roster with the way that they ended the season. So I could see them moving up for sure.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if you guys want to do that, I could definitely set it up. Like, I can force a trade, so it doesn't have to be like specifically what would happen, but I think it'd be 13, a first rounder next year, I would imagine, and probably something else, on this in this draft, maybe like a 77, maybe some more. I'd have to look at like the actual
Yeah,
like
so
points
how you
total and
start.
stuff. But
Yeah,
if we just do that, like I can
yeah,
just force the trade. So this will get done what we need to get done for the sake of this mock.
yeah,
So yeah, Giants are now on the board, or excuse me, the Raiders are now on the board, and obviously as we talked about, this will be Jaden Daniels.
yes.
Okay,
This is
cool.
exactly what I hope happens.
Kind of
Like
me,
this is
me
more
too, a
important
little
for
bit,
him.
honestly. Just like Felix, I feel bad for you as part of it, but like also just for football's sake, like let's just get Daniel Jones like playing not on the field right now.
Oh, I'm with you.
So in that case, this sets up perfectly for the Titans. Joe Alt is here. He's
Yeah.
the pick. No questions asked. Best all around tackle, in my opinion. Going to be a Titan, barring the Chargers or someone else deciding to nab him before them. I don't think there's any question there personally for me.
Yeah.
Now, with Justin Fields in tow, the Falcons are now on the board for you guys. This is an interesting pick. I'm curious where you guys want to go with this one.
I
Yeah.
could see any of the top three on there. I think it was Cooper, Odunze, and Wiggins.
It's funny. I'm like
Hmm.
following along, so I'm making the picks too as we go. And honestly, I could see them going Dunze just to get another weapon there. Because Drake London was okay this past season, and it's not much outside of him. I could see like DeJean because he is that Swiss Army knife, and they could put him wherever. And you got Jesse Bates at safety, who balled his ass off this year. So bolstering the secondary with a young talent like that would be big too. Yeah, this is a hard one. This is a difficult one. Man,
Yeah, there's a lot of things you could do here.
I would say I don't know how Falcons fans will feel. I kind of lean Jared Verse here. I just think I could see them going pass rusher, and if I had to go between him and Turner, I feel like Verse is the guy with more sand in his pants, better run defender, but still the dynamic pass rusher. Or Latu, you know. Damn, I don't know. Jake, what do you think? Like maybe DB? I feel defense would make sense if they grab Fields.
Yeah, I think Fields has some solid offensive weapons. So Adunze would be nice, but I don't think they need him as much as a defender. But I could understand. I would probably either go an edge rusher or Cooper DeJean. I think because Cooper can play multiple spots and be that kind of Swiss Army knife. But I think they also do need an edge rusher. So I could see Verse, to be honest. I like Latu also. I would probably go Verse, Latu, or DeJean, but I don't know. I don't think I know enough about the Falcons to have like a super strong like number one here.
I kind of lean DeJean because of the athletic profile and the versatility.
Yeah, we could do that.
I think they'll really like him there.
All right, DeJean then for you guys.
Yeah.
You're with me.
All right. In that case, this makes it very easy for me, in my opinion. I'm pairing Caleb Williams and DJ Moore with Rome Odunze at pick 9. They need help on the edge still, even with trading for Montez Sweat. But if you can give me that offense year one to get the things rolling with Shayne Waldron coordinating it, no questions asked from me, guys, personally. So I'm going to send it right back over to you guys. You have the Jets coming up here. I think we know what they need the most, technically. But this team does need a lot of help in certain areas on the roster. Receivers definitely a position of need. Now with the Dunze gone, it kind of probably eliminates that at this pick, unless you're really high on one of the other guys. But Fuaga's here, Fashan is here, the tackle, obviously. What are you guys thinking with this one?
Interesting. I lean Olu. I think.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
Olu's a better pass protector in my opinion, and
Mm-hmm.
you got Aaron Rodgers, so it just makes sense.
I think you have to go O-line here, and I think Olu's the best fit for exactly what they need. So,
all right, you guys go with that?
Yeah.
All right, that's kind of what I thought you guys would do. All right, now this is where things get interesting because remember, we need 5 quarterbacks off the board in this mock, and I think the first team, barring a trade up or some other scenario, that could consider taking J.J. McCarthy, because I feel pretty confident, whether or not we agree with it or not, which I kind of do, but either way, he's probably going to be the first quarterback off the board after the top 3. Like between the upside thing, the age, it's probably going to be him. I think it could be as high as this, and I think considering the stipulation that we need 5 and the Vikings are already sitting here, could look to move down and maybe still take him later if you guys don't jump me for him, but the Broncos are sitting right there as well. I can see that being a thing. I'm going to go ahead and just stick and pick. Even though it's just a little early for me to take a chance on him, I do think I'd feel better about it in like the mid to late first, just because I'm not 100% confident he's going to work out. Give me J.J. McCarthy, the Vikings, at pick 11. All right, now the Broncos are up. So you guys also need a quarterback. Now, are you willing to take the 5th guy this early? Do you look to maybe move down in this situation, or do you just take a good player maybe?
So I think Bo Nix might be the best pick for the Broncos if they want to go QB. I was going to say that this could be another trade spot where they might trade down and then take Nix later. But now that JJ is gone, they could get nervous with Nix probably being the next QB off the board and take him here. Or we could trade back. But I think in real life, if this happens, I think Denver might get nervous and take Nix here.
I was going to say, Jake, I agree with you. And I also think, to add on to that, Sean Payton strikes me as that guy that's like, I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Shut up. Like, no matter what it is, if he's like Nix at 12 and everyone's like, I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Shut up. Run the card up. You know?
He's going to be my Drew Brees. I can see it in my dreams.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I can see
that. I could see Bo Nix here for sure. I really could.
That would eliminate the need to do any more quarterback shenanigans. You guys could just get rid of it now. It's something that I could see happening, like you guys said. So,
looking behind them, there's not too many teams. I mean, it depends on what the Giants might do, but I think the Saints, Colts, Seahawks, Jaguars, Bengals, Rams, they all feel like they're probably not going to take a QB. So maybe if you trade back, you could feel kind of safe in that regard, but I don't know. I think realistically they might take Nix here.
Yeah, I will say I am willing to offer a trade possibility to you guys that I think may satisfy the need for getting the 5th quarterback off the board later. Even if maybe it's not what the Broncos would do if this is how the board fell, I could offer you something. As much as the Rams have held on to their picks the last 2 years, finally, after kind of going F them picks as we knew, I know they really probably want to get one of the top either defensive players on the edge or a corner. Most of them are still here. I can see them trying to jump some of these teams in the middle here, where like Jaguars could definitely be up for a corner. Even the Bengals could be interested in that. Colts definitely would be interested in that. I'd be willing to move up from 19 to come up and get one of these, probably one of the corners, actually. So if that's something you guys would be interested in doing.
Mm. I don't know. I personally like the idea of Sean Payton losing his shit and wanting Bo Nix.
Oh, for sure. I have no problem with doing that. I'm just saying that's your essentially like you're out if you don't
Yeah.
want to have to do that. But if you want to just say like this is something I can see happening, I will not argue with that. I think it's totally possible it could happen. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it.
okay, do you guys want to go next year then?
Yeah, let's do it.
5
All right,
QBs
sure.
in the top 12. Let's go.
5 QBs in the top 12. Oh, it's fun. All right. Now I, Felix, get to control the destiny of your favorite team. How does
Yeah.
that feel? No. So for me, obviously quarterback's non-starter at this point. Not taking anybody that's left on the board here this early. Wide receiver still a huge need. Also probably a tick early for any of the Brian Thomas Jr.'s, the Colemans, whatever you have at receiver for, stuff like that. Offensive line is still a concern. I don't know if I trust Evan Neal to play right tackle for me. Waga's still sitting on the board, would make a great right tackle. Maybe you move Evan Neal inside, see if you can fix the inside with him, see if he can do better at that. That's certainly on my mind. I also kind of love the idea of pairing Dexter Lawrence and a Byron Murphy or a Johnny Newton together. I think that'd be very fun. As you can see, Felix is kind of looking at like, oh, yeah, maybe. As much as Lawrence is a great pass rusher in his own right, he is a nose, and I think him trying to be the pass rusher and the nose tackle for this team at the same time can definitely be difficult, maybe take a little off his plate. That certainly interests me, but I think considering in this situation, your quarterback is probably going to be Daniel Jones. And if you're trying to do that still, if they are going to force themselves into that, probably the most important thing that they can do outside of getting him weapons is try to protect him better. And I do think Fuaga would be a better right tackle than Evan Neal has been to this point. So I think I am going to go to Lise Fuaga in this situation. Saints, now up. You guys get to pick for them. They have a lot of needs as well. What are you guys doing here?
This is interesting.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I feel like God, they're one of those teams to me that it's like if they picked anything, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Part of me wonders if this is a spot where one of the pass rushers goes.
Yeah, I could see that. Interior or on like a Dallas Turner starting to fall a little bit. Byron Murphy and Johnny Newton are still here. You guys didn't go with Jared Verse, so he's still here. That feels like a pick for them for sure.
I was going to say Verse.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to go with.
I think Verse is the pick here.
Verse, yeah. I mean, it does fit their bigger bodied edge type that they love, but he actually has the juice, unlike most guys they draft. Like Foskey was drafted last year. Doesn't have much juice. Big dude, not a lot of juice. So, like, I could definitely see that being a really good pick actually for them, maybe. So,
yeah. I think that's a good.
Good with that. All right, let's do Verse here then. All right, 15 with the Colts. They stay at 15 and they don't get jumped for a corner, it turns out. So for me, I'm probably taking Arnold here. I think he's just the best all around corner. And I think he had just like his athletic tools, everything else. I think he's great. Like Cooper, obviously already off the board, is the best all around defensive back for sure, in my opinion. But in terms of just outside corner, and I think playing inside a little bit too, even if he needs to, they still need to keep bolstering that back end. Like I think Brent's is okay play. Like he's just a weird type. I think they might want to get more like true, like big time athlete in there. So let's get Arnold in here for the Colts. Seahawks at 16. So they have obviously a lot of needs as well, especially in the trenches, I would say in particular. So definitely a lot of guys still sitting here that you could take for that. But
I like either Turner, Latu, or JPJ, I think.
It's funny. I was going to say I like JPJ here.
Yeah, I think I think it's I had the Seahawks last week, and I think I went JPJ. And I'd be down to do it again.
I think this is like the ceiling of where you could see him go. I do think that. Yeah. Like I think it could very easily happen as early as this.
Yeah. And it's an important, I think, position for them to make sure they're shoring up the middle for their quarterback.
Guard center flexibility.
Yeah. I like JPJ there.
All right, let's go ahead and get him off the board. Crushing the dreams of a particular team that will remain unnamed for now. For the Jaguars here, I think it's pretty easily for me defensive back or edge because edge, Allen, I hope, is back. I hope they don't F that up. That would be really devastating. Trayvon Walker, again, we've talked about a couple times in different formats, at least I have in different shows and things. Stats look good at the end of the year. I just still don't think he's there as an actual down-to-down edge rusher. I think he's good for what he does, but being the number 1 overall pick over Aiden Hutchinson does not look great right now. That's all I'm going to say. Does not look super awesome, Jack. So edge is still definitely concerned, kind of regardless. I think he could still use more help there. I'm going to go probably Quinion Mitchell here. I think his upside as a playmaking defensive back, off coverage, the speed element, I think he's going to do crazy stuff here in the combine here. So I do think that would be a huge one to do. So I'm going to go Mitchell here. Do that. Bengals on the clock, guys. A lot of tackles here still, a lot of interior. What do you guys want to do here?
I think Bengals, I could see. Damn, this is where I get kind of like tied up because I can easily see them wanting to shore up the line more, protect, Joe Burrow, obviously. But
couple tackles still. Mims.
Yeah, in the middle of their defense, though, I mean, they have B.J. Hill and that's
DJ
it.
Reader's a free agency. Yeah, he's a free agent, so
Yeah,
bring him back. That's a question mark.
Getting a difference maker in the middle like that, a young difference maker at that, would be really big for their defense. And yeah, I don't know. I think if we go here, I think we did it last week. I could see Amarius Mims, just because of the athleticism at tackle. But I would not be surprised if it was like Byron Murphy or Johnny Newton here.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mims or Murphy. I feel like they're more likely to go offensive line, though.
Yeah.
That just feels like.
Yeah, let's go Mims.
Mims, all right. And again, for the Rams, you sit, and they actually end up working out pretty good because you could take a corner here, which is definitely something I consider. But pairing Dallas Turner with Byron Young, I'll do that. Falling to 19, very easy for me. And now you guys get to crush my dreams. Who would you like to take to make me probably set? No, I was kidding. What do you guys want to do here for my Pittsburgh Steelers?
Malachi Corley. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna say, just start scrolling down.
Just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good. This is good. Oh man, I want to go Kool-Aid. I want to lead toward Kool-Aid, but there is a part of me that wonders if they'll fall in love with a guy like Latu. And you got Watt, you got what's his name? Huh?
Highsmith.
Yeah, you got Highsmith, but they're both on contracts, right? So
they are both under contract for quite some time still, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. You can never have enough pass rushers. I always think.
Yeah, I will say they tend to really struggle to keep more than 3 actually good edge rushers at the same time. I'm not sure why they do that, but they do that. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I would personally go Latu here, but what they would do, well, Latu or McKinstry, I think are the two that I would feel good with. What about you, Jake?
I was gonna say the same thing. I don't. That's a tough one. I would probably lean Latu, I guess.
Yeah, I think we did McKinstry last week, so
I thought Yeah,
let's just maybe we do Latu this time just to change it up.
Yeah, I'd probably go Latu here, I think.
All right. Just have a 3-headed edge rushing monster for the Steelers. That'd be fun. Dolphins, for me, you kind of have to take an offensive lineman. I'm going to take Fatanu because of the fact that I think this may have been the pick last week too, possibly. He's just the best Swiss Army knife type left. Like Barton could also be that, but I think Fatanu, I think is how you actually pronounce it. I think he has the tackle possible flexibility too, whereas Barton is just interior flexibility, honestly. So for me, I'm going to take Photonu here. So Eagles still got Kool-Aid on the board. Got Nate Wiggins up here sitting too. I'm a big fan of his as well. I think he has some sometimes takes some plays off that is kind of weird, and I see that happen. But outside of that, I think he has awesome tools. So those are two I would definitely be looking at. But what do you guys think there?
I think you have to go defense for sure.
Yeah.
And I would specifically probably go secondary. I think 22 is. I feel like Wiggins in real life might go higher than 22, so I think he's probably good value here.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see Kool-Aid too. So, but I think it's between Wiggins and McKinstry for me.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Wiggins in real life is going to go on draft night is going to go higher. So I could see McKinstry being the pick because of that. But I feel like because of the way the board fell, I can see the Eagles going, "Oh, this is like a top 10 player on our board. Let's go get him," and they go Wiggins. So, yeah, I think in this scenario, I could see it being Wiggins.
Yeah, if he's still on the board at 22, I don't think they'll. So with how bad their secondary was to end last season, I don't think they'll pass it.
Yeah, a lot of athleticism.
They've had a habit the last couple of years of like grabbing guys at positions that they went later than they should have. Like they got Jordan Davis last year, and even Devonta Smith. So I could see it.
Yeah, actually, we'll go Wiggins here for you guys. And then this makes it pretty easy. Between Murphy and Newton, I'm still on the Newton train more than Murphy, but these two are very much interchangeable probably in terms of if you're looking for that pass rusher type in the interior. But Johnny Newton adds to that Texans defense that still needs to get a little bit better there. Easy money for me. So Johnny Newton here. Cowboys 24. Always an adventure for the Cowboys, but lately they've been better at it. But
I feel like you can do pretty much anything here with the Cowboys.
Yeah. I would see. I'm gonna be honest. I go Murphy because I think adding the bolster to the front, so it's not all the Parsons show, and then he plays at Texas, and I can see Jerry Jones being like, "Bring him home."
Yeah,
so,
for sure. For sure, and he said exactly like that too. Yeah.
I see Murphy. I don't know. I think Murphy.
I'm good with Murphy.
Right,
I think that's. I actually, because he played for Texas, I actually do think that might be a reason that Jerry brings him just for that.
Could be honestly. So for me here, guys, I think if you're the Packers, corners in need, safeties in need, a little early for any of the safeties. Could still use weapons, honestly, in my opinion, but they kind of made it work with them last year. I'm going to go – I think I may have done this last show too, but Guyton still just screams like developmental tackle on the Packers that works out in 2 years type for me. They need a new tackle for the future still. They're going to need help there. He probably won't have to play right away. Give me Guyton here at 25. Tampa Bay, 26. What do you guys think here for this?
Ooh, this is a good one. I don't know. I feel like last week I think we went interior, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think we went Barton because we were talking about protecting Mayfield. But they have a lot of needs on defense too. I could see McKinstry here just because
the outside corners had a rough year last year.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that's just a natural fit. That makes sense there to me.
I think I would probably go defense here, but I think you could go anywhere. On the needs on here, it even says edge, linebacker, and cornerback.
Oh, it's just a lot.
All three levels. I think Kool-Aid would be a great fit, though.
Yeah, that scheme. Yeah, I think so too. So you guys got Kool-Aid here. Cardinals, I'm going to double up, I think, again at weapon with Brian Thomas Jr. sitting there. Reunite the teammates. Get them together on the same offense again with a Michael Wilson and maybe some other guys there. And Kyler Murray could hopefully have a true bounce back season 2 years now removed from the ACL. I think that's pretty fun to do. So we'll go Brian Thomas here. Bills also could use a lot of playmaker, could use an upgraded tackle possibly, especially if Dawkins is going to go at some point soon. I think he's going to get extended, but some definitely different things you could do here for the Bills as well.
Yeah. I think last week we went Franklin.
Yeah. Latham, I think at 28 is pretty good value. But
I think you could play him inside too if you don't want him playing tackle and stuff.
I still feel like I might go receiver if I'm the Bills, but at 28, if Latham's still there, they might.
I feel like just because of the way the board went and Latham's there, I could see Latham.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, we can go Latham here, guys. Lions here on the clock. I really like this fit. I do think they need corner. I haven't watched much of Rake Stroud Jr. yet, so I don't want to take him here, but he's definitely in play as kind of that back end of the first round corner. I'm going to go Grant Barton. Some positional flexibility, could play guard or center, which could both be needs depending on what they do with Jonah Jackson at guard in free agency, and also Ragnow's had some injury issues, so you wonder about him too long term. So I think he'd be a great kind of just fill in piece for whatever they need to fill in here on the offensive line. So we'll go Barton here. Ravens on the clock here, guys.
Yeah, I think this is the interesting one for sure. Part of me wants to go Keon Coleman. I think we did him last week.
Yeah, I think any of these receivers that are left could definitely be fun in that offense because I definitely need one, at least four, if not two.
I honestly could see Franklin because that would take away, Zay Flowers having to be everything, including their deep threat.
I think he'd be a nice compliment to Flowers too.
Yeah. Let's go Franklin actually this time. I like that.
All right, let's go Troy Franklin. And for the Niners, for me, I'm looking offensive line or a corner. Offensive line definitely is a little bit of a question mark outside of Trent Williams. So that's probably where I want to go. But the best guy left on the board is probably Frazier. Not 100% sure how good their center played last year. It's been a while since I checked that out, but he's definitely good fits. Cornerback is still definitely need to. I think at this point I would be willing to take I need to watch him more, but I think I'm going to slot in Rake Stroud Jr. here as the corner to the Niners here. And then I leave you guys with probably the most predictable first round pick we're going to do in every single mock draft. Which receiver is it? Let's play that game to finish things off. What receiver is it?
I think we went with Ladd last week.
I believe so.
Yeah, I do think we debated between Ladd and Mitchell, but Coleman was off the board.
Right.
So part of me wonders if Coleman's
Coleman.
See, Coleman is that guy. I'm not as high on him as Felix is, but I do think if he goes to the Chiefs, it's all right. Great.
Right?
It's all right, everybody's wrong who doesn't like him. So, just go ahead and take that off the board. So I could see that, though, for sure. They'd be like, he'll figure it out. It's okay.
Yeah, and I just think because outside of Travis Kelce, I think Valdez Scantling is the only other receiver that's over 6'1" or 6'2".
Yeah, so it's a lot of smaller guys.
Yeah, and Coleman's a guy who I think could play that underneath stuff too. So, yeah, I think
All right, Keon Coleman goes to the Chiefs here, and this is our mock guys. We'll just kind of scroll through real quick once they graded, even though they're not, because we did all the picks. But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff here. I think a couple of cool trades we were able to do. Definitely getting Daniels to Las Vegas is certainly fun. But that'll do it for us this week, guys. We'll be back next week with our running back and tight end episode. That one probably will be enough by itself. We won't do another mock just because that does make the show run pretty long. But we will do more shows, hopefully throughout the weeks as well, on top of our main shows on Sunday. We'll make sure we tweet that out if we are going to go live another day. But again, I'll let you guys go here. I know Jake has to get going here, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys
later.